Well, hello everybody. I'm Clémence Valade. I'm a French designer, and today I would like to present you my diploma project that I did almost a year ago at a French design school called Annecy Les Ateliers. And especially, I would like to use this project to show you basically the behind the stage of how this project came to be, and also how old objects and forgotten habits can inspire innovation in design. So I hope you're all going to be interested in that, and I'll start the presentation now. So these are the final project of Us Coutumes. So the goal of Us Coutumes is to make it easier for people to reach sustainable habits in their home and in their everyday life. But before getting into more details about this object, I would like to retrace the story of the project. So yes. So it all started with this furniture. So it's a very old and traditional French wardrobe. They were transmitted from generation to generation for years and years on. And I discovered that now in France, at least, those objects are being thrown away because nobody wants them anymore. And that raised a question for me because, basically the functionality of these objects is, they are still working, they are still very well made in noble material and with the family story in them, but just because their size and usage is not matching our homes anymore, they lost all value to our eyes. So with that, I started to wonder about how we evolved so fast in just a few generations so that objects would become completely useless. So I looked at what houses were like 100 years ago, and I was really surprised. As you can see, this is a French traditional house from around the 1900s, and at that time, basically, common houses were just one main room that was very modular, and that will switch from dinner to kitchen to bedroom every day. It's really interesting because in that time, almost all objects were made locally, either by a craftsman in the village or directly by the people themselves. And all the objects contained in this house had been made through generation and generation. They have been developed and they were like particularly fit to each of their purposes. And what's interesting is they were very functional, of course, very minimal, but they also carried a lot of meaning in symbolic or stages, social stages. So from that time, that is not so long ago actually, it evolved very fast. So in the 50s, there was electricity in most houses in France, and with electricity came the fridge. Then in the 70s, we had running water, which changed drastically our homes, which allowed for sanitary in the 75. So just a generation away, actually. And what's interesting is that with those new commodities coming to our home, it was like our homes suddenly changed. And for example, new room, like the bathroom were created, where before you would just wash yourself directly in your bedroom or in the common room. And so that's the change of our house and habitation, thanks to all those commodities. That's what's led to a lot of objects that had been used for forever, basically, to disappear and to disappear along with the habits that they were holding. But now the question was basically, so those objects disappeared for a very good reason, just because we didn't really need them anymore, or they were not matching our way of life because we got new commodities in our daily life. But then why would we bring them back now? Why would they be inspiring for designers now? And my answer to that, at least for home objects, is the environmental crisis. So, like, as those objects disappeared with the industrial revolution, now we are also facing a new drastic change in our daily life that is this time brought up by the environmental crisis. And we all know that, well, as a society we need to change, but also as people, like, and the issue is that this time, instead of bringing up new commodities and making our life easier, transitioning from to more sustainable habits can feel like a downgrade, like we're going to lose easiness in our life or comfort in our life. And so I think what's interesting in this is that old objects, they were sustainable in a sense because, well, there was no choice at the time. So this time, I think we can really be inspired by those objects that were developed over centuries to create new objects for new sustainable habits. So that's basically where my research turned into projects, and I try to define three aspects on the project that I would keep throughout the full creation stage. So the first object is principle is that I would be inspired by old objects. So here is like traditional French shoes that are very comfortable. I'm sorry, I think all the references are very based on French culture, but I hope you get it, or that you have similar things in your cultures. But yeah, so like, because old objects, as I said first, they were made locally and with as less energy as possible, because that's how everything was created in that time. But also they bring out this feeling of nostalgia, like we have some sympathy for them, even though we never used it, maybe because we saw it in our grandparents' house or in some old movies, so they are less frightening than full-blown innovative new material, etc. The second principle was basically to go with light objects that would work in series, so that you could switch slightly and from a small change to a greater change without it being too frightening or constraint or too much of a constraint. And finally, my last principle was that I would only work on actions that would have a real impact either on our direct life or on our global environmental impact. Because there are a lot of products that already help us to do small changes in our home or in our habits, but it's tiring to change our habits. And if we spend a lot of energy to change an habit, only to find out that in the end it had almost no impact on on our global footprint, well, then it gets very frustrating and discouraging. So one of my goals was really to focus on work and sustainable changes that would have a real impact on our footprints. So with that in mind, I started to link all objects that had disappeared with transitions that should be made, or at least are concerned today. So I thought about running water, about data, about the cooling system, and about food, and a few more projects actually. And of all those combination, I decided to select only two that felt to me like they would make sense together. And that would be the diet change and the hygiene change. So those two the project then split in two projects that are separated but work along. And I think they work along because they target different habits in a home. Like one, for example, the diet is something that you can easily share with your friends. Like if you change your diet, people will notice. And that has a very big impact, but on your environmental footprint. Like you cannot really see directly sustainable benefits from changing your diet, but you know that that's what has the most impact actually. And for the hygiene, it's quite the opposite. It's something that's very private that we probably wouldn't share so easily with our friends, like how we wash our bodies, something we almost never talk about. But it's working with running water, which is spending like resources that we can really see going through our sink, basically. Every few months we get a review on how many liters we used in the months. So that would be resources that we can directly see and connect to. So that's why I decided to go through with both those projects. But as I cannot really keep on talking about two projects at the same time, I'll start with the diet, and then I'll explain what happened with the hygiene project. So about the diet, you have to know that while I was researching old objects, I was also doing a lot of research on sustainability, of course, to work on my subject. And I based this part of the project on a French study that regrouped basically what would be a sustainable diet in 2050 that we should all achieve if we want to eat more locally and to really lower our impact on the environment. So I think you all know that our current Western diet is really not healthy. It's not healthy for, well, our body, and it's also not healthy for the environment. The main issues are the heavy meat consumption that asks for a lot of water to be produced and a lot of water to be used, and pollution. Also the fact that we do not eat vegetables that are in season, so they tend to be brought from around the world to our plates, which also pollutes a lot. And finally, the over-processed food that has for a lot of steps to be made, and usually a lot of packaging that is also very damaging to the environment. So, well, basically that's what I was working for. But I wanted to have a good, a positive approach to diet change. So not work on guilt of eating too much cheese or eating too much meat, but more like bring forward healthy food. So I started to look at how food was stored before. And yeah, sorry again, that text are in French, but all of those objects are actually food storage or food container that were used to either keep or kind of make some food sometimes. And what I found very interesting is that they had very like a lot of various shapes and materials and techniques that would help to preserve very specific food. So you wouldn't have, like we have now, one closet or a fridge and they all look alike and we store all kind of different food into it. Like you would have a very specific basket for cheese and a very specific basket for bread and something for potatoes and something for meat, etc. And moreover, what's interesting is that in that time, those objects, they were not hidden away in the kitchen. They were really part of the living room. So here you can see an old French farm. And you can see, for example, that you have baskets and, well, a lot of sausages hanged on the ceiling over the chimney. And that you have ceramic spots that preserve food that were a bit harder to get, like sugar and spice, that were very delicately decorated and that were used as decoration over the chimney. And finally, you also had furnitures that were mixed with food storage, like this one is made to actually make bread and preserve it, but it also existed with a chair that would keep the salt away, etc. So storage was very interesting at that time. So that's where I kind of decided what should be the project. I wanted to bring forward the food that we should eat. So that's basically vegetables, fruits in season, and beans and grains. And I wanted to do so by creating specific storage unit for each of them that would put them outside of the kitchen and really bring them out in the living room. to make them easily accessible and easy to remember that we have them, and just make you want to eat them, basically. So for this part of the project, I was also inspired by very classical still life painting that would really bring forward the beauty in vegetables and different food, but mostly vegetables and fruit. And inspired by that, I started to draw specific storage units that would also work on preserving or making better the food that they were holding, and not just be neutral boxes. So that's the diet collection. As you can see, it's made out of glass pots that are used to keep grains and beans. So we are supposed to eat much more beans in the future, like 10 times more than what we do now, at least for our French diet. And so I wanted to really bring out the beauty that is in all those shapes and color in the grains. And also to ease the process of cooking them, because we kind of forgot to cook those products. So I made it so that the cap could be used as a cup to measure like how much beans you need for one person and for different meals. So it would make food preparation easier. So that may look like a very simple box, but it's really made out to bring forward the color and shapes of the beans. Concerning the fruit, well, as you probably know already, if you store fruit in a bag, they just start to mold and go bad. So I really wanted to have a solution that would align the fruit so they would almost not touch each other, and that you could all see them all the time, to make it easier for you to grab them and make sure that they don't go bad so fast. So for that purpose, the best way was to use a basket, woven baskets. So that's made. This one was made in France, of course. On comments, baskets are great because it also allows for air to flow, also preventing mold and yeast to grow on the fruit. And this one, I worked on the shape so that even if the basket would not be completely full, it would still look great. Like it would have this graphical impact on the wall, even with just one fruit inside. But at the same time, when it's full, it can really hold a lot of fruit and vegetables. So it's very satisfying comparing to a cup. And finally, for vegetables, well, that was a bit more complicated because vegetables really come in all shapes and forms and types. One of the main issue was to create something that would basically work together and be able to evolve throughout the season, because, well, you have seasons where you have only kale and salad, basically, and seasons when you have much more colorful and round vegetables. So I worked on this plate that would serve as a centerpiece in a house, where you could really set up your vegetable and make it almost in an art piece, placing them beautifully. But you could also just put them on it and it would make something pretty. And so the plates are made in a ceramic that is not protected, so that you can put water in them. And with evaporation, it brings a bit of moisture and freshness to the vegetables so that they keep longer. And at the same time, as you can see on the right, there's 3 little bowls. They are modular, so they can adapt to different kind of vegetables and different kind of shapes, so that you can really have fun presenting your veggies and setting them up as you like. So, like, this first part of the project is it was really interesting because those 3 objects are really dedicated to their specific product. So they do work together, but they also have their own identity, each of them. And I think the idea here was really to take out the food from boxes, dark boxes that we never really notice, and to bring out the beauty in them. so that you would be more attracted to them simply, and I would push you to eat them in a very subconscious and positive way. That's so that was a part for the diet. Now I'll talk about the hygiene. So for hygiene, of course, when there was no running water, we would wash ourselves with way less water. Just to give an idea, in France now, we use on average 150 liters of water a day per person. And just just direct water, like the water we use to wash ourselves, wash our clothes, wash our food, prepare food, etc. And of those 150 liters, 40% or more are just due to the shower. And the fact is that actually we just, as a society, we just shower more and more often, and also for a longer period of times, so that our water consumption is just getting up, like drastically up every day. So I was really interested in seeing what objects were linked to body hygiene when there was no running water and we were not able to, to use hundreds of liters of water every day. So basically, in the past, before running water, you had to fetch your own water to wash yourself, which was a very tiring job. It's very heavy, obviously. And so you would spare water. In 100 years ago, people would use around 10 liters of water a day per person, and that's already quite a high average, actually. So at least 10 times more than what we do now. And so because they were using so few water, there was no dedicated room in the house to wash yourself. You would just have objects that you can see here that would allow you to keep out clean water and soap water and really spare these resources that was clean water. So as you can see here, this is still once more a one-room house where you can have the bed on the side, and the guy was shaving, and he shaved by just placing a mirror and some bowls of water that are dedicated to hygiene. And once it's done, then those bowls would just disappear, and the room would be just a main room again. So what I found was really interesting is, well, the use of the washcloths, which is something that we almost do not use anymore. But my idea was to say, so we need to wash our body in a different way. But instead of trying to change every shower, like our daily shower and our daily habits, maybe we could just say, let's space it. So instead of showering every day, we can shower one day and then wash ourselves differently another day to save water. Because every time you wash yourself with a washcloth, so out of the shower, obviously, you save around 8 liters of running water. So that's a huge difference on your daily consumption. So trying to bring back the washcloths, I try to, well, first focus on the problem that were linked to cleaning yourself with the washcloths. I asked around, I did a little study, of course, and the main problem was that it would get damp and never really dry, and so start to smell, and so the full cleaning your body with something that is not clean was causing issue. And then once I specified this, I also looked around at all the objects that were necessary to clean yourself and really create this series, this set that would be practical on a daily life. So this is what the set looks like when it's done. So as you can see, it's quite a few objects in the end. It's really linked to old objects in the past. So here you have a clean water tank. So it's 3 liter capacity. So that should be enough for a morning ritual easily. And it also came with a wooden lid and a wooden ladle. that allows you to use the clean water without touching it, so really without polluting it, and make it easy. All those objects are really thought to unconsciously push you to save water. So already having a finite amount of water pushes you to use less, obviously, but also the ladle, it is targeted to be a good amount, like around a small glass, so that you can do a lot with it, but at the same time, it's not using too much every time you use it. Then come the main object, which is this sink. So contrary to our modern sink, this one is always closed. It's just a joint in the way of the ceramics, and the water closes it. So you can see when you clean yourself how much water you have already used. And then if you want to get rid of the gray water, you just have to slightly lift it. And the water goes down in a gray water reservoir. So this gray water you can then use to water your plants or your garden. It's no problem at all. So I worked here also on really bring forward the beauty of the water in the sink, and making sure that the objects were easy to understand. And then you also have textile, of course, so the washcloths and a protective layer. So they work together. I worked on the structure and color of the washcloth so that it would dry faster and be easy to use. And then the protective layer is just a waxed cotton, and it allows you to protect the space that you decided to set up your washing product in. And finally, the soap holder doubles as a washcloth holder, so that it makes sure to very dry thoroughly, and makes it easy for a daily use. So the full set, it can be set up anywhere. So that's very interesting, because contrary to our modern bathrooms that are very fixed and that you cannot change depending on what you need in your life, this you can set up where you want to be able to wash yourself, at the height that you want to be able to wash yourself. If you want to do it sitting, you can. If you want to do it standing, you can. If you want to put it in your entrance because you want to be able to wash your hands when you enter your home, of course you can. So that's interesting. The other interesting thing is that every shapes and colors and form, they were thought through to be both modern and also easily readable as a hygiene product, so that you would immediately identify it as something that you would use to clean yourself. And everything is also thought to make you spare some water, but in a subconscious way, and in a very positive way towards your hygiene. So those are the two projects. I hope it was interesting for you to learn how they came to be. Now you probably know a lot more than with just a few pictures that are available online. Of course, if you have any question, you can ask me. Just so you know, some of the products from the diet are being produced right now by a little French editor that's called Metapoly. They are made by French craftsmen, and I'm very excited about this. They should come out pretty soon now. And I hope you found that interesting, and I hope that I can see you at Isola.design next year, hopefully live, so we can have actually some interactions. And bye bye.